part twos and sequels we enjoyed next on Retro Serial. Hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. I'm your host, ENC. Part twos and sequels are often controversial. Most of the time people don't like them. But on today's episode, me and my guest talk about the part twos and the sequels that we did like and why. Now, not everybody's sequel is everybody in the room's sequel that they love. And we're going to get to that and talk about why that is on today's episode. But before we get to that, would you please do me the honor of liking this video, hitting that subscribe button, and share it on your favorite social media. If you are interested in knowing when these things are available, well, hit that bell notification, and then you won't miss a single episode. If you're listening to this on podcast form only, please do me the honor of writing a review and, a star rating. That would be great. As long as it's good. As long as it's good. If you don't like what we're doing here, then you don't have to leave a rating at all. But if you like what we're doing, then please, by all means, leave us a rating and review. And you can also share this on your favorite social media as well. And I think that before we get to today's episode, if you want to support us in what we're doing here, you can follow the links below to our Patreon page, where you'll find two levels of support. First of all, there is the Cornflake Club, which is just $3 a month. It's like a tip jar saying, we like what you're doing there. Please keep it up. More retro cereal. If you want to be on the Insiders Club, then you have to join the Honeycomb Hideout. It's $5 a month, but with that, you get most all videos and podcasts at least one day in advance. At least advanced enough that you can say you listened to it before everybody else did. And if you wanted to make a one-time donation, we are available to do that with our Venmo page. It's at singularity_production. And there's going to be more ways to give in the future if you like retro cereal. All right. Well, now with all that said, let's get to today's program. Well, everyone, welcome to another episode of Retro Serial. I don't need to reintroduce to you the topic, other than to just say, once again, we're going to be talking about sequels that we thought were either just as good or were terrible. I mean, I'm not going to limit it. We're going to talk about sequels, but it's not going to be a negative Nelly kind of thing. We're going to talk about the ones we actually liked too. I know there's a lot of sequels out there that we dislike, but there's a lot of sequels out there that we do actually really enjoy. And that was kind of the emphasis of this. Justin, you had contacted me and said, well, let's do one on Back to the Future Part 2. And you mentioned a couple reasons about why doing it on Back to the Future Part 2, because it was such a good follow-up to Back to the Future. There's a good range of character development with Marty McFly, who has to play an old man and a young man, and and his son, and there were some good things about that show. And I thought, well, let's just open it up to sequels we love. But of course, as we open it up to sequels we love, the sequels that I love are probably not going to be the sequels everybody else loves. You might hate on them, so whatever comes to mind. But first of all, I just want to make sure that we're just introducing everybody around the room. So first of all, let's talk to Justin. How you doing, Justin?
I'm good. Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, this was a great idea. It was something we were going to do last week, but I thought it was a really good idea. Justin, you've got a channel. You don't do a whole lot over there, but tell us a little bit about what you've done.
Most of the stuff I put up are just short clips of sitcoms and movies that I just put humorous, addendums into the comments about. And that's really all I've ever uploaded. Sometimes I put stuff, I think I had a chat up there with Dave, and you were on there at one time. I'm going to re-upload those at some point, but basically my channel is pretty bare right now. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll pop into yours or Dave's stream and have a chat and things like that, but just mostly interested in the same things: retro TV, and music as well. So
Yeah. Well, Derek, you're making your comeback.
Yes.
So yeah, tell everybody. I know people will know about you, but reintroduce yourself. Tell people about your channel.
Okay. Yeah. My name's Derek. Like you said, thank you. I have a channel called Flick Snacks and Knickknacks where, I just do mainly movie reviews, every now and then snacks and knickknacks as well.
Okay.
Kind of have to throw that in there, but do a lot of movie reviews, new movies, old movies. I like to have directors, actors, things like that on to interview, talk to, and kind of I like that, ask interesting questions that I don't hear a lot, and that's kind of what I've based my channel around when I do those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing these videos with you guys and discussing movies and films and just about any era. I'm down for it. I love it all. I'm just a film fanatic, I guess is what I would say. And if you haven't seen my channel yet, yeah, go check it out.
Right on. And the man who needs no introduction, Thrash Pondo. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. Pumped for this,
good.
by the way. I could talk about movies all day.
Right. Just tell us just a few sentences about your channel.
Oh, sure. It's mostly a nostalgia channel. My passion, science fiction preferred, but all kinds of old movies and literature. But I also do some fun stuff too, humorous videos on old dad jokes, comic books, and what I call the creepy classics, where I take an old 45 song and show you how the lyrics can be really creepy if you interpret them that way.
I've seen a couple of those. Those were very interesting.
I love them.
So
Thank you.
Actually, we're going to go backwards. I want to start with you, Thrash, and then we'll go backwards through it. I'm going to throw out a movie title, a part two. You're going to talk about whether you loved it or hate it, and then you're going to talk about what you loved or hated about it. I'm going to go ahead and start with I'm going to go ahead and start with this. I mean, you're on the spot here. Okay. So this is going to be my pick. Everybody's going to have a pick of a part two that you liked. And then, but not everybody's going to like what you like. So, but everybody can go around the room. These are easy ones. These are ones we've all seen before. So I actually like this one, but I want to hear what you have to say. And then we'll go around the room. Thrash Pondo, Ghostbusters Part 2.
Okay. I like the fact that they got the original cast back together. It's difficult for a sequel that one of the strongest things about it, when the original movie, the ensemble cast is its greatest strength.
Right.
And they try to move forward and they don't have all the principal members, that gets a bit awkward. I like the fact that by and large, with some exception, they did get the cast back together. I like the fact that it's a follow-up sequel. One type of sequel that always bothers me is when you have a really big climactic ending and then they don't even reference it in the next movie.
Yeah.
I feel movies should be sequential unless, and I'll reference this later, unless it's a completely different adventure altogether. I like the fact that they sort of picked up where the other one left off and spoke to it. I actually kind of liked the new villain they got. I like the fact that this one had a central villain and not just an overall concept. Some people did like him, some people didn't. I liked him. And I kind of like the creation of the love triangle with Sigourney Weaver. One of the things I always thought was kind of weak from the original was we're supposed to just accept Sigourney Weaver will fall in love with Bill Murray just because Bill Murray is so charming. But in reality, all he does is alienate her. I'm actually scratching my head at the end saying, what did he do to win her over? I don't get it.
Right.
In the sequel, they actually speak to that and elaborate that. I got to be honest, on the whole, I didn't find it quite as successful as the original. I didn't laugh as much as I did in the first one. I didn't go ha as much in the second one. But if you want me to speak to things I liked about it,
you can speak to what you don't like. I mean, if you think it's a turd, by all means say.
Just for some reason, I just thought that the humor wasn't there, and I don't know. I'm not saying that they were phoning it in. I just, for some reason, things weren't landing. I think it suffered from a lot of very successful films, and that is all we have to do is put them back on the screen and hilarity will ensue. And it's not that easy.
The
It's
writing was
very,
weaker.
very difficult. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they thought, they had lightning in the bottle, and it's never that simple.
Yeah, yeah. Derek, Ghostbusters Part 2, thoughts on it? Yes, no, like it, didn't like it, whatever. It's your turn, brother.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Ghostbusters 2. Yeah. I agree with a lot of what Thrash said, especially the part with the villain. The first one, that's something I really struggled with, even though it's like a lot like I mean, like I agree with a lot like what he said. I have a couple more points too, but with the humor, yeah, the first one is funnier, but the central villain, it's not really there till the end, and it's like this battle, and you kind of struggle with the fact that you have these characters you really like, but not this villain that you've grown to hate. It's not this thing that you can hate, and
Mm-hmm.
so in the second one you kind of have that, and that makes it easier for the movie and the story of that movie to flow. So I think in a lot of ways the sequel succeeded in maybe perhaps creating a better central storyline, and maybe even perhaps in a lot of ways a better film. But the writing itself, like you said, the dialogue and the humor just doesn't really stick and land as much. And they really tried to take it a little more seriously, I think, from what I've seen, which is the opposite of what a lot of franchises do in sequels. They usually try to go a little sillier. Yeah, good example is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
The first and second one are actually terrifying. The second one being maybe the scariest in the entire franchise. So, and then they get goofier and goofier. But so it seems like they kind of tried to get a little more serious in this one and keep the humor to more of not a comedy movie, more of a drama movie with some comedy. And it doesn't really work as well. I don't like it quite as much as the first one, but I like it a lot more than a lot of my friends do. And I probably watch it as much as I do the first one.
Yeah, yeah. I think in a way it's easier to write a part 2 because you already have characters. You already have, kind of an idea of what it is that they're, but then that's also what makes it fail. Maybe you're not trying as hard or something like that, and I think that's might be what happens.
I think that a lot of times when these sequels pop up, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think a lot of times that they take scripts that weren't even necessarily meant for the franchise, that were just scripts, and then they formulate it into the franchise. I think Alien and the Alien franchise is a good example of one that's done that. Predator, those types of movies, a lot of times they just take a normal script. Hellraiser, they'll take a lot of these scripts that are just written for these like detective movies and then make them into these movies. And I think that Ghostbusters, it was either Ghostbusters 2 or 3 that did that. I can't remember which one, but it was not even like a Ghostbusters movie. And I can almost always feel that when that's the case.
Yeah, yeah. Justin, Ghostbusters Part 2. You loved it, hated it? Tell me why.
Well, I think I've seen it maybe 3 times, to be honest. And every time I see 2, I just always go back to the first one. Like, to me, it's just night and day. I think the first one was so iconic and original that you really can't compare. And there's a couple issues I have with the second one as far as just continuity stuff. And that's, just small things like, I guess the Lewis Tully, wasn't he in the first one? He played the accountant that was living down the hall from Sigourney Weaver.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. So in this one, for some reason, he's all of a sudden with the secretary, Janine. But in the first one, the secretary was going after Egon Spangler. And they really didn't mention what happened. Or
he's like Stan Lee in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And that was just a small thing, but I noticed that. But other than that, to me, that courtroom scene was it was almost a little too cartoonish.
Right.
I know there was a ghost in the first one when they were in the ballroom and they were fighting that, and then with Gozer at the end. But that courtroom scene, for some reason, just always, it seemed like it was almost like at the Ghostbusters cartoon. There was just a lot of for that time, I guess it was good animation, but it was just it seemed a lot hokier than the first one, I guess,
Right.
to me. But there was one good part I did like about it, and probably my favorite part of the movie is when they're in the street and Dan Aykroyd turns into that brash New York accent, and he starts saying the gas line's over here. What are you doing over here?
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the funniest parts of the whole movie when they comment people catch him digging in the street.
Right. Right. Right.
But the slime running under the street and stuff like that, I don't know. They were trying to use more special effects, I guess. And to
Yeah.
me, I think the first one is just miles ahead.
Yeah, yeah. For me, and then this was my first choice as far as the part twos were concerned that I really enjoyed. I look at it through two eyes, and the very first eyes that I look at it through was when I first watched it when I was a kid, and I was less critical, when it came out. So I wasn't like I was some film critic. I just enjoyed the show, and I always liked, like, I always hate, like you don't know what happens to these people and stuff like that. So whenever a part two comes out, I'm always just like really excited. When I was a kid anyway, I was always really excited. I'm like, oh, good, they're a part two. And people would, you know, talk about the problems in part twos, which they do exist in part twos. But as a kid, I was so excited that I was like, oh, I just want to see it. I just want to see what these people are up to. It's like friends that you don't see for a while. And you're like, hey, I just want to know what you guys are doing. So, I mean, for me, I liked it. As I look back on it, yeah, I can totally see all the criticisms everybody else sees in it when I watch it as an adult, but it's not, but there's still part of me that even when I watch it as an adult, and even when I watch it, because that first time I watched it was so, it was so emotionally impactful that it almost eclipses that. And I can still enjoy it today. All right, so that we're gonna, I don't know exactly how to do this. Let's see. We're gonna go, Derek. You're gonna choose a part two,
Okay.
and you're gonna choose a part two that you enjoyed. Okay.
Yes.
And then we'll go Justin, me, and Thrash Pondo talk about it, and then
Okay.
we'll go around the room that way. So Derek, what was a part two that you really did enjoy?
Okay. So it has to be a part two. Can't be a part three, correct?
I would rather be part
Stick
two.
with part two. Okay.
These are sequels.
Yes.
These are sequels. I get
Okay.
it, but
Okay. Mad Max 2.
Well,
I think that's one I got to throw out. It's pretty easy. It's pretty obvious, but I was afraid no one
was
would
there a
mention it.
Mad Max 1?
There was once upon a time, but it has been blown into oblivion by all the sequels. So this is obviously a movie that was, I don't know how to even explain it because I wasn't born yet. So it's a little bit more difficult for me. But I watched them growing up because my dad, was like, watch these, these movies and things like that. And so, sorry, it's going to get a little bright for a second.
All right.
But so this was one that I watched the first one first because he made me, and I was like, that was pretty good. That was a cool movie, but it just didn't feel complete. And the second one elevated it to something completely different, a whole nother world, honestly, like the world changed so much in those two movies, but, and it kind of didn't make sense in a way, but at the same time, it was perfect. It was perfect. It worked because the second one was a masterpiece. It's better than, the first and third one. I liked Fury Road a lot, but part two and Fury Road are definitely the best in the series, in my opinion. But Mad Max, I think, is just the title of the sequel, and Mel Gibson, at the beginning of his prime, up through the late 90s, he could really do no wrong.
Yeah.
Honestly, and he has had some deserved hate through the years. He's kind of redeemed himself through apologies and things like that, and good movies. But he was one of the best actors I watched growing up. I mean, honestly, just tremendously talented, and he brought the character of Max to life in a way, in a world, a post-apocalyptic world, the best we had seen to date in cinematic history. One of the best to this day in 2022. And I think what 1981, I think, is the year this movie came out. And it's just phenomenal. Great part two. Maybe my favorite part two of all time, excluding series that, go through like several series like Harry Potter, things like that. And, like part fives, part fours, things like that. But this is probably my favorite just sequel, especially if you're not involving horror, because I have a couple of those too. But yeah, Mad Max 2 is definitely one I had to bring up today.
All right, Justin, tell your thoughts on Mad Max 2.
I think, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm not familiar with that a lot, but I do know. Is that the one with Tina Turner?
That's actually Thunderdome Part 3.
That's 3. So The Road Warrior is basically Mad Max Part 2. The Road Warrior.
Yeah, Mad Max is 1, then Road Warrior. Yes.
Right. Okay. No, I didn't actually see that one.
Oh, you didn't see Mad Max?
Not that one. I saw the third one a lot.
Write it down.
That simplifies that. Yes, check it out. You have to see.
You have to check it out. Now, so a lot of times I've talked about this before, like when you come into a conversation that's like halfway in the middle and you're trying to catch up on the conversation and you realize, oh, there's a lot of stuff that kind of laid the groundwork before. You don't get that with Mad Max. With Mad Max stands on its own, or with the Road Warrior, it stands on its own as its own movie. You can totally watch it isolated from anything else from the first one. Yes. And as a matter of fact, not only is it isolated, it is such a different movie than the first one that it surpasses the first one like all the heck. And for me, I didn't even know there was a Mad Max. I had no idea. I thought there's Road Warrior, and then later on people are like, there's Mad Max. You need to pull your thing down.
Sorry, I was just agreeing. Yeah, it was probably good. It was up there. I was just like, yes.
Right on. But that's, I mean, it's pretty simple for me. I mean, it was one of the best shows, or best movies. Sorry, I always say show for movie. I don't know when I'm going to stop.
We know what you're talking about.
One of the best movies that I grew up watching, and it was one of those movies that was on HBO quite a bit. And I had HBO, and my friends had HBO, and we'd stay up and watch HBO at night, and that would come on, and we loved it. It was when it was heavy rotation movies. Thrash, you're up. The Road Warrior. What do you think?
I am so glad you mentioned this, and I'll tell you why. I actually use this franchise to distinguish when people say, what's the difference between dystopian and post-apocalyptic? The Road Warrior is post-apocalyptic. It's everything is gone. People are just trying to hang on by their fingernails in a world that's gone wild. Mad Max is dystopian. Things have gone to crap, but there's still a functioning government of sorts. There's still lights go on. Exactly. The interesting thing about it is if you read the lore, when I saw the Road Warrior first when I was a kid. I saw Mad Max later when I found out there was what I used to refer to as the prequel, the origin story. In the lore, World War III actually happens before Mad Max even. And it answers, during the Cold War, the Australians were obsessed with this idea. If the Northern Hemisphere were to destroy itself in World War III, like everyone thought it was going to, war with America and Russia, would the Southern Hemisphere be able to survive because of the Coriolis effect? And, who knows? On the Beach was the same premise. So in Mad Max, what happens is, the Northern Hemisphere is gone, and Australia is sort of hobbling along in a very mothballed economy, but they're still making it. Things are just spiraling down. This, however, eventually leads to the ultimate post-apocalyptic element, and that's our Road Warrior. And again, I love both movies, but it's one of the few times, not the only time, but it's one of the few times the sequel surpasses the original.
By a long shot.
By a long shot. Not that there's anything wrong with Mad Max. I love Mad Max, but The Road Warrior is a better film on many levels.
Yeah,
agreed.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those ones that are way out ahead. There are sometimes where part twos are good and we enjoy them, but they're not as good as the original. And there's sometimes, occasionally, there are part twos that are that we like better slightly than part one. But then Mad Max is one of those that's like way ahead. All right, Justin, you're up. It's your pick. What do you pick for a part two that you absolutely love?
Um, well, I mean, I think we know what I'm going to pick because you
I
mentioned.
thought I was gonna say you better pick the one I'm thinking of.
What? I
Um,
don't know. I don't know.
Back to the Future 2 for sure. I
Yes.
mean, that's probably my all-time favorite sequel. Just picking up, I was sitting around for 5 years of my childhood waiting for this to come out. Like, is it out yet? Is it out yet? And finally, I think I was like 11 or 12. It finally came out. I
Mhm.
was at the theater and saw the whole thing, and to me, it was great even then. But as I got older, I just noticed so many more things in the movie that were great.
Mm.
I don't want to go on forever about it. No, I want to do a small synopsis of it, but basically the things I liked about it, I think you already touched on some. Marty got a lot of different roles he played, which was
Yeah.
humorous. He plays his sister, which is pretty funny. But I think the other funny thing was that Tom Wilson, it was his breakout movie. He played a young Biff, an old Biff, and then the I don't know what you would call it, the evil, corrupt capitalist Biff, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So he had a big range of characters in that movie, and I thought that was pretty interesting that they put him as the focal point um, in that movie too. I guess another thing that got me interested in it was that whole sequence where Doc Brown explains the alternate 1985. That's just so great. He draws it on the chalkboard, shows how the time skewed off
Hmm.
to an alternate 1985. That really explained the whole point of the movie, and it was kind of like right in the middle of it. So
Right.
you got a good explanation of what happened and what they're going to have to do to fix it.
Hmm.
But just the futuristic stuff, I think that's what most people were looking forward to when it came out. And it's weird, a lot of that stuff in the movie is came true, which
Yeah.
is a lot of
Some
people
of it.
talk about that, but like the Cubs winning the World Series and something. I think when they're at home and he says fruit and he stands up in the dining room table and there's like an arrow garden over the dining room table. They actually have arrow gardens now.
Mm.
It's like hydroponics. But there's a lot of things. Fingerprint sensors. I
Yeah.
mean, those are obviously were here. So there's just so many things in that movie that were great and definitely one of my favorite, well, probably my favorite sequel. And if it hadn't been for the, I don't know what you would say, the specialness of the first one,
Hmm.
I think it almost surpasses the first one. Almost.
Yeah. Well,
But the first
well,
and the second one might definitely.
Hmm.
right. Right. Well, that's the thing too. And and I'll pick it up from here. For because you hit the nail on the head with that. The first one was very special,
Right.
but but as far as a movie goes, like just the movie goes, I was definitely into part two more. It had more action in it. It had more, I don't know, it had more drama. It had more suspense. It had a little bit more silliness, like you said, with the especially with Michael J. Fox playing his sister.
Yeah.
But I thought it was more. It was for me. It was more edge of the seat. Like I was edge of the seat more, and how I really liked how they overlaid it, like how he was on top of on top of the stage while his other him was down below the stage, and I found it to be more intense. Like like literally like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, and how everything was happening, and and so I loved part two of that. I actually very much loved part two. But the problem is you're running up against a part one that was so groundbreaking. It was
Yeah.
it's so iconic that you got to go, oh no, I got to give it to part one. So, but I loved it too. And but again, the thing that I loved about it, quite honestly, better than part one, was the action in it was a step up, and I liked that. It was more edgier seat action, where part two was a very good movie, but there's a lot of downtime figuring out what's going on. He's got to figure out how to get his mom and dad together, and a lot
Yep.
more of that kind of stuff going on. Where part two is like boom, 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 boom. All right, Thrash, your turn. What do you think about Back to the Future Part Two?
I absolutely adored the first one. I was in high school when it came out. I absolutely adored it, and I did look forward to the second one. And there were a lot of things about it I really liked. Biff, especially. Biff is a very dangerous villain.
Mhm.
And I always found it hard to believe that one pop to the chops could turn him into a kitty cat. No, he'd still be a very dangerous person and not that easily neutralized. So when they came up with a concept where he actually just sort of reinvents himself as a new kind of villain, I actually liked that a lot. And I thought he played that off very, very well. And I love the fact that there's a great amount of irony here. Marty is actually the engineer of his own undoing. In a moment of weakness, he brings that book back with him. And
Mhm.
it's that book that Biff gets a hold of. So it's really Marty's fault inadvertently, but it really just sort of plays with the whole, like, just how easy it is to destroy your life when you mess around with time travel and other little things as well. I love the idea of an 80s nostalgia restaurant. And who would have known people would be that nostalgic about the 80s? It was hard for us to envision it because we were in the middle of it.
Right,
It's hard to be
right.
nostalgic about something you're doing. But the 80s were the last great decade, and people are very nostalgic about it now. And they were very ahead of the curve and very insightful of them to see that. I had a friend, by the way, speaking of the technology, he was obsessed with those reverse magnetic skateboards. He was
Mhm.
convinced that those were just prototypes. He goes, "Oh no, I read an article. They actually invented them. They work off the gravity of the Earth. They should be out any year now." 30 years later, no, there ain't no such animal. But it really made an impact. People really wanted reverse gravity.
Yeah, yeah.
And all in all, one last thing. Again, speaking to the direct sequel, it literally went from the end of the first one into the beginning of the second one. And again, I have a weakness for that. I was very glad they left on literally on a cliffhanger ending. And when TV shows, and they love to do that these days, like Game of Thrones and whatnot, they'll end on a cliffhanger. And Doctor Who always did, but then we always picked up right where we left off. No, they end on a cliffhanger and then pick up somewhere else and then say, "Oh yeah, we took care of that here." No, if you're gonna end on a cliffhanger, resolve the cliffhanger in the opening of the second one, and they
Right,
did that.
right.
And as it turned out, that cliffhanger was just a little. It was almost like a companion piece, just enough to bring us in. The true drama was going to be something totally unrelated. But I love the fact that they did that. So all in all, I'd say I think I still love the first one a bit more, but I'd have to say the second one was certainly of equal quality.
Mhm. All right, Derek, Back to
Okay.
the Future Part Two.
All right. So it was the summer of 2005. I was 13 years old. And I remember I was working as a dishwasher in a little like malt shop cafe in a town of like 300 people in Stonewall, Oklahoma. And they had a pool table and a bunch of VHS movies to rent. And I went in there and I rented all three of the Back to the Future movies.
Mhm.
So they kind of run together a little bit for me because of what Thrash was saying, where they kind of continue. And I remember watching them all then. And ever since I've done that, when I watch one, I watch them all. So it's kind of just like one long movie to me. Part three, obviously being a little weaker, part one being great, but and I don't have much to add in terms of the movies itself that hasn't been said. I mean,
Okay.
it's a really good sequel. The first one, I don't have the nostalgia for them in terms of seeing the
Mhm.
first one when it came out. So I just viewed them all back to back to back. And honestly, the second one was my favorite one.
Mhm.
Um, I do like the second one a little bit more, but I cannot watch it without watching the first one first.
Mhm.
So because it is a great movie, it's a fantastic movie. I feel like it's a little choppier than the second one. I feel like the second one's a little bit more cohesive, a little more fluid. Maybe that's editing. I feel like maybe I feel like the first one kind of it just didn't feel like it had, I don't know, the behind the scenes people pulling the same strings that the second one did. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. I don't know who the producers, editors, things like that are from film to film and those in that franchise. But it's one that I really enjoyed. What you're talking about, Biff, that was one of my favorite parts about this movie, was having like the multiple Biff villains. And I don't know, this one is just a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a really fun movie. The first one was fun, but it felt like lingering fun, whereas this one felt like more fluid fun. And then the third one got a little bit silly for me. But so yeah, I think part two was actually my favorite. So I think this is a great choice for this conversation. Obviously, it's one of the most iconic franchises of all time. In this day and age, it's very underrated. I think a lot more people like Gen Z need to be watching these movies. I think they'd really like them. They hold up well.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head, because there's no nostalgia factor for you, so you can watch it without having that first one be
and that's
special.
kind of what you were saying too, where the second one felt like maybe more of a put together film, but you couldn't quite have the same love for it, But
well, but if you're just dropped in from another time and you watch it, you go, oh, part two was a better movie, and I feel that way. So I think we can do one more round robin with through the room before our time's expired. So so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start, and then so we're going to go the same order. What I did was I mentioned one, then I mentioned everybody else, and I finished. So I'm going to start. I'm going to say what I liked about it, and then we'll go the same order. But you can have your, what I mean. Anyway, I'm not explaining it correctly, but believe me, it makes sense in my head. All right, so this is going to be controversial. It really is. But this is a movie that I liked. I liked the first one a lot. It was a great movie. I loved the first one, but I thought the second one was better by a long shot. Not just when it came out, but also even today when I watch it. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I thought Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom beat the hell out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it wasn't that Raiders of the Lost Ark was a bad movie. Loved Raiders of the Lost Ark. But for me, and this is not just the nostalgia factor kicking in, going, oh, I watched the part two. I'm excited about like the things I mentioned before, even today. And one of the things that I really like about it is I just felt like the story was more compelling. I felt, and again, it was an action thing. The action was just non-freaking stop through the whole thing. I mean, we go from, the scene at the very beginning where, he cuts the gong and they're shooting, and then he gets into, you think he's safe, going to be in the plane. And then nope, you got to jump out of the plane. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for you. It is, 30 years old. Don't tell me you're going to go home and watch it tonight. So, and then from out of the plane, you think, oh, he's going to be good. But then he runs into to this group of people who need help with finding their children, and the roller coaster ride. And I thought the sidekick was excellent. I really enjoyed the supporting cast. I think it wasn't just the girl that he was interested in, but the short round, the sidekick, I thought was really cool as well. So I have absolutely nothing but love for part two. I think part two is better than part one, way better than part three. And part four should be destroyed. So anyway, Thrash Pondo Pawns. Now, listen, this is not, hey, you got to say something nice. If you don't like one of our part twos, say it and say why. Okay. So this is just a sequel, part two talk about. Okay. Thrash Pondo Pawns, part two, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. What were your thoughts?
Well, it's not that it's not without its merits. I mean, I thought it certainly it had a lot of positives, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. I myself found it to be the weakest of the original trilogy. I don't count number 4. I consider it a trilogy, and it's the weakest of the 3. And I think the main reason for me was it was almost like it was trying too hard. Like they noticed in the original the action was what people loved, and the sort of, I don't want to say off-color humor, but that's sort of when making the people go ew was actually, people had a lot of fun with that. So they said, let's make an entire movie of nonstop action interspersed with scenes where people have to go ew,
Right.
and they just, how should I put this? It's my problem when they try to do modern noir films. A noir film was carefully spun into a web of intrigue. Nowadays, all they do is add plot complication on top of plot complication on top of plot complication on top of plot
Twist
complication.
after twist, yeah.
And that's not true entertainment. It's just sort of, ratcheting up the tension. In Temple of Doom, yes, there was a story, there was a plot, there was a goal with stakes, but really it's just like, okay, we're gonna add more action, and then more action on top of that, and then more action on top of that. Let's look how much action we can add. Wow, we're adding all this action. And then they had little things like the banquet scene, where let's just intentionally make this as gross as we possibly can. And when you think we've hit the wall, we'll add something even grosser.
Right.
Oh, look, we're going to serve a snake, but it gets better. You open the snake up and there's little snakes inside. And it's just like, oh my. And then the dessert scene, which is right out of Faces of Death. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. You're trying to gross us out. I get it. It's just like, it was almost like it was trying too hard.
Yeah.
Like pump the brakes, I would have liked it better.
I see where you're coming from. I really do. But what surprises me is you think it's worse than part 3, because I thought part 3 was a turd personally. I didn't hate it. I liked it. But as far as anything goes, I thought that was the weakest one. Derek, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So I do disagree with Thrash here. Sorry, man. I honestly think this is the strongest out of the 4 movies. The first one I like a lot. I mean, if I was gonna do my normal rating system, it's probably an 8 out of 10, maybe a little above. But part 2 is getting real close to that 9 territory, and it's all because of the build up to the climax that it delivers. You know what I mean? Like you said, I mean, spoilers for a 30-year-old movie, but I'll still try to not really give details, just because that's how I discuss things. It's very vague, but it's just, it builds up to this climax. You have this, this wit and these things, and I the gross out fact, the ew and the going back and forth. I do completely understand that and get that and agree with that. And I think a lot of the humor misses because of that. However, when the humor hits, I really, really loved it. I enjoyed it. I laughed. And like you said, I loved the supporting cast in this movie. I felt like everybody filled their role really, really well. I can't think of anybody that I really thought was miscast or didn't do a good job. And you build up through this movie to this climax, and there's the scene at the end. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. It just delivered for me. I just thought, wow, this is actually happening. This is real. And I don't know. And then the escape at the end was maybe a little bit weak, but all in all, I felt like this was the strongest out of the Indiana Jones movies we got so far. Maybe not the best example in terms of a story for an Indiana Jones movie, but just in terms of the way it played out and entertainment value, what I would and how I would rate them, I would say this is probably my favorite of the series. I feel like this is another really, really good pick for this video.
Right on. All right, Justin, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom.
Wow, everybody's different on this one, including me. So I agree with you. Number 4 should be burned.
Yes.
But I'm going to go opposite of everybody, think, and say, to me, I like the third one more than the second and the first. To me, the second, second one is,
wow, we are all over the place.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. The second one is really good, and the first one is really good. I don't know if I could pick between both of those. I do like the female lead in the first one more than Steven Spielberg's wife or whoever that was.
Kate Capshaw.
But yeah, I think that for me, the third one was just they were thrusted into that World War II thing.
Yeah.
And I think that really was exciting for me personally, that aspect of it. But I can see why. I mean, a lot of people do like the second one. I think the second one and the first one are so close for me. I couldn't really pick, but me, the third one is my favorite.
Out of them. Well, interesting. All right, I forgot. So, is it? Let's just go. So, you pick another number two thrash.
I think that's whose turn it is. I think
Yes.
it's Thrash's turn.
So you pick another number two and tell us what you liked about it.
I'm actually going to break my own rule here because this is a name only sequel, but possibly one of the best. I wanted to pick a sequel that, in my opinion, was actually better than the original. And there were a couple of examples of that, but I decided to pick this one in particular simply because we had discussed the franchise in an earlier show. And I'm going to stop tap dancing around and just say, For a Few Dollars More. For a Few Dollars More is, in my opinion, one of the best sequels in cinema history. Now, not that the Fistful of Dollars wasn't great. It's loosely adapted from Yojimbo, fantastic movie. When you have great source material, it's hard not to make a good film. And when you're one of the best directors in Western civilization, it's a no-brainer. And I did love Fistful of Dollars, but I loved For a Few Dollars More, and for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones was the man with no name, much as he operates alone, he has to have a foil. He has to have someone he's working kind of with or against, either, both. And they pair him with Lee Van Cleef, who is an absolutely outstanding actor in his own right. And the two of them form this very uneasy alliance. I loved we never see the man with no name's backstory. He makes a couple references to his childhood in the first film, but we know shockingly little, and that's what works about him. But Lee Van Cleef, we have almost a complete dossier on him, so it makes a good duality. I absolutely adored the villain in For a Few Dollars More. He was one of the most iconically evil bad people you will ever see, just beyond love to hate him. He was like an archetype. And one of the other things I love about it is the actual interplay between, dare I say, the good bad guys is actually of secondary nature. The actual journey of the movie, and I'm going to have to give it away here, but if you haven't seen it by this point, shame on you. They're heisting a bank and then have to find a way of opening the vault without destroying the notes therein. So they have this long, intricate plan and then a sort of post-plan journey. And there's this like whole epic quest almost. And while it's going on, you have this trumpet. They're all working sort of against each other. The whole thing just comes together outstandingly into one of the best climax sequences in cinema history. And I think it actually shines as one of the best sequels of all time.
Interesting. Well, I think I can't speak to the movie at all because I didn't ever watch it. So I've never seen the first one or the second one. Justin, are you the same way?
Yeah, I was gonna say shame on me because I never saw. I saw
that hand raise. So
All
Derek,
right, guys,
you were
let me
going to
take
be
it from
next.
here. You know what
You're
I'm
going to be
saying?
next anyway. So
All right.
but we'll just have to skip us and then go to to the other number two. So
that's okay. So yeah, this is a great trilogy. I believe the third one is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, correct?
It is, which is a prequel, but yes.
Yes, to the man with no name. Yes, and there have been many adaptations of him. Like you said, Yojimbo is one of my favorite Japanese films. Maybe it's my favorite Akira Kurosawa film of all time. Possibly one of my favorite movies of all time, but definitely top 20. Just a film that I recommend to absolutely everybody. It is a fantastic movie, and obviously they did a good job adapting it. It just wasn't quite the same for me. Just there are certain elements, and I mean, I love Clint Eastwood, big Clint Eastwood fan, especially his early work. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the only 10 out of 10 movie I've ever given on my channel.
Really?
Ever. And so when Thrash said this, I was really excited. So
Wow.
yes, this is a great trilogy. I have a really hard time separating them again. This is another series that I have a hard time kind of saying this is one, this is one, this is one, just because that when movies come out like this, I tend to like to view them as one movie.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Hatfields and McCoys, it's a series, but I view it as like a 3-part series, but I view it as like 1 4-hour long movie or whatever. And that's kind of how I view these. It's kind of how I view the first 3 Star Wars movies. Just really anything like that, I kind of try to view it as one movie because that's how they want it to be viewed. So I kind of try to do that. But yeah, this is just I mean, wow, just great movie.
Great movie.
I love this trilogy. It's in, like you said, Van Cleef in his role, Clint Eastwood, and yeah, I think he plays 2 separate roles, correct? In the trilogy, 2 completely separate roles, or is it
opinion is divided?
That's what. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'm confused on that one, but I think I've heard both ways. So, but anyway, either way, great casting choices, great spaghetti westerns. Some of the best movies ever made is that trilogy ever. And even today, John Wick are inspired heavily by it, as well as The Man with No Name, which is one of my favorite South Korean films of all time. A lot of movies like this, these modern day westerns, are so heavily influenced by these specific movies, and they're fantastic, and they launched a really long and inspiring career from Clint Eastwood.
The only thing I know, what's his name again? Ron Van Cleef?
Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van,
Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van Cleef.
I think this is where I know him from, his Master Ninja.
Yes.
Master Ninja theme song. Anyway, because it was on the Science Theater. But he was also
he was also in the John Carpenter movie Escape from New York. He plays the head of the police that maintain order on the island.
Cool.
I guess it's my turn to pick a second one.
You're
anyway,
up twice.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead. Speaking of John, okay, so I'm gonna list 4 movies, but we only have to talk about one. But my OCD said I have to list these. I have to at least mention them.
Okay.
Speaking of John Carpenter, I'll say Halloween 2. Okay. Fantastic movie. As well as Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. And also a really great sequel, probably better than the first Star Trek movie. At least none of them could really touch the original series, but still great movies. National Lampoon's Christmas, fantastic sequel, great sequel, maybe close, maybe better than I think. I like it better than the original, but
certainly better than part 2.
Oh, what is it? European Vacation. Yeah. Oh no, we don't even have to talk about that one. But yeah, so it's a great sequel. Regardless, at least holds its own. I could list so many more, but the one I want to talk about is Batman Returns. And this is right on the cusp of the Generation S. This is 1990. So I was teetering.
You've heard me talk about Batman Returns before, haven't you?
I have.
Okay. You're gonna hear it again.
But I wanted to hear some just some discussions. I just wanted to hear some open discussion, especially now that we have Justin on here. I'd like to hear his point of view too. But so definitely not my favorite Batman series, the Tim Burton series. I feel like he was a good choice at the time. I feel like these movies hold up. They hold their own, but they're not my favorite Batman universe. I have a very specific Gotham in mind when I watch Batman. Batman Begins is my favorite Gotham of all time. The first movie in the Dark Knight trilogy. And then they kind of fell off. And the Batman with Robert Pattinson created that kind of same Gotham. That's kind of the Gotham I envisioned. So Tim Burton took it in the right direction from the Adam West, in my opinion, but it maybe went too far. So I do have my issues, but just in my opinion, this is a great sequel. Jack Nicholson obviously was a great Joker in Batman, but and I feel like he's probably a better villain than Danny DeVito's. Oh, you're fine. Probably a better villain than Danny DeVito's Penguin, but I felt like this movie had more context to it. You obviously knew more about the villain. You got to see a lot of his even politicking, things like that, and it had its cheesy Adam West moments too that they threw in homage to, like the bomb with the where he, like, I forget what he says, but he sticks the bomb to that guy and he tosses him off, and so Batman does kill, I guess, but you have Michelle Pfeiffer, which, I mean, I don't even really have to say more there. I mean, in her prime, I mean, just one of the most gorgeous actresses of all time. Killed it as Catwoman, and I feel like this is a really good follow-up. I feel like what they did was they took the same universe they had in the first one, which is a really good idea, and they just started adding elements to it. They gave it this like whole holiday vibe. I don't know. I just really, really like this movie. It's not one I watch as much. Like I said, it's not my favorite series of Batman. I don't go back to these movies a lot, even though Michael Keaton is still my favorite Batman of all time.
Okay.
I don't visit these movies a lot, but I feel like this is a sequel that did what it was supposed to do. It just kind of added to the same universe. And I feel like Tim Burton really cared about this project, and I think he did a really good job.
Justin, what do you got to say about Batman Returns?
Yeah, like I was gonna mention, it was like Catwoman, because half the movie is pretty much developing Michelle Pfeiffer's character, which is fine. Like you said, like Derek said, that's not a bad thing. I think it was a very good follow-up. Maybe not quite enough Michael Keaton in it for me. I know they had to develop
32 minutes. Batman has a total of 32 minutes.
Out
Batman
of
Returns.
with 2 hour plus movie, right?
Yep.
It was long too, yeah. But yeah, I think it was really, really good. And like you said, definitely a great follow-up. I probably don't watch it as much as part one, but again, it's just probably because there wasn't as much Michael Keaton in it. That's probably, and I saw number one in theaters like probably 6 times that month when it came out.
Right.
I was -2 years old, so
No seeing.
I turned 21, I think.
Well, my experience with Batman Returns was I saw it in the theater the first time, and I kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Didn't really care for it a whole lot. We were on Samurai Show, you and me together, and we were going to talk about it. So I've watched a lot of reviews on it, like Minty over at Minty Comedic Arts. He does like 10 things you didn't know about Batman Returns, and I watched that. And so when I got invited to be on Samurai Show, I was real excited. I was like, you know what? I'll give this another chance. I'll watch it. I haven't seen it since it was out. I think I saw it once in the theater and once on VHS, as I kind of recall. And I haven't seen it since. I watched it. I'm sorry, Derek, but in my opinion, it was the most terrible show I had ever seen. I thought this made Batman and Robin look like a good movie.
Oh no. Okay, now, yeah.
Hell no.
How do I get out of this thing?
No. Hey, listen, this is the deal, though. I mean, it's all taste. I mean, it's all taste, right? I mean, I think if they made a Ransom Part 2, none of us would like it, maybe, but it's like, how does this kid get kidnapped a second time? But
he kidnapped somebody else.
Yeah, right. No, I thought the story was super inconsistent, and that's one thing I really don't like. I can handle a lot of suspension of reality when it comes to action movies, and I love it. I mean, I want to see, the good guy do cartwheels in past all the guns and take them all from the people and shoot them all, and they're all dead and he's fine. I don't mind that. That's great. But when it comes to inconsistencies in the story, that really bothers me. And it was blatant and plain. I mean, first of all, this Penguin guy has the fortitude to amass this army but he can't seem to find his parents. It's too
Yeah.
much.
Now
It's
don't ruin it for me.
no, well, I'm sorry. You brought it up.
I'm just kidding.
I gotta say it's too much for me. Just kind of like there's no explanation. It's as far as like why his parent. Well, there is the explanation that he's hideous, but it's just is the scenes that he just goes down there and he's raised by penguins is it's just a little too far out for me and
It's very
disconnected.
comic. It's very comic. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. Comical. I don't know. That's a whole totally different meaning, but
I
it's
would have
very
been
comic book esque.
Say
I
that
would have
again,
been,
Justin.
I said I would have been proud if my dad was Pee Wee Herman. I don't know why he disowned him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the movie when I rewatch that. I'm like, there he is.
It's Pee Wee Herman and the other girl
Oh,
from
yeah.
Yes.
From the sandwich shop
yeah.
in Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, but it's just they're looking out and they're looking at their son going down this thing. To me, that's a little it's a little unrealistic. I mean, everything's unrealistic. I get it. But we all have the point at which we go, okay, I can't handle that. And Batman Returns just violates that too many times.
That's
Now
kind
there
of
are
like
other
how that's how I
movies.
feel about it with Tim Burton. He just got too Tim Burton with it.
Yeah. So all right, all enough for me on that Thrash Batman Returns.
Well, you and I have talked about this movie on several occasions, and I will admit, I actually liked it. I must yield your points that your criticisms of it do hold water, but I love DeVito as the Penguin, and I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was amazing as Catwoman, and Christopher Walken.
Let me interject here for just a second. There were strong points, and the one strong point was the casting, and I thought it was beautifully done. I thought the depiction of Penguin was really good. I really liked it, and so I'm on board with that. It's just too many bad points for only a couple good points. Sorry to interrupt, but
I totally agree with you and understand that too.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Thrash. Go ahead. Proceed.
Actually, the funny, I probably have as the least about to say about this film of all the others that we've actually spoken to. For once, I am at a loss of pontification. I will just say that I thought it was a solid sequel, but I yield your points. But and the one thing I will say about it, though, is Batman and Robin was certainly the weakest of the franchise. And I am unanimous on that.
Yeah.
Bat credit card my backside.
Whatever he says, say does not matter. It's the worst.
All right. It's Justin, isn't it? Justin. Yep. Give us a part 2 and what you liked about it, and we'll hit the room.
Well, a lot of my list is probably, you know what? I'm going to go with one that's kind of an older one that's in the horror genre, which I don't watch a lot of. I'll just put that out there. But I thought Friday the 13th 2 was a lot better than the first one. Probably the main reason is because you're supposed to believe that some 60-year-old woman's killing all these 20-year-olds. In the first one. So it made it a lot more realistic when the son comes back and he's dressed in a more villainous way and he's killing all. Of course, you don't know that right then, but I thought part 2 was the best of the franchise. 3 was okay, but I thought it was a lot better than the first one just for that reason.
Yeah, I have to admit, I did see part 2. And part 1, and when I was a kid, I did I don't watch horror movies now, but when I was a kid, I did watch horror movies. So I was really into Friday the 13th. I wasn't really into Halloween as much, though. That's just kind of eluded me. I think it's just because it wasn't on HBO as often as Friday the 13th, and so but I have to agree. So I'm looking at it purely objectively, and I don't like to review horror a whole lot. For reasons already mentioned.
Yeah.
But I have to agree. I think part 2 was better. I think what part 1 had was that twist at the end that it was that girl. But then when they brought Jason back as a character, this indestructible character. That was interesting. That made it interesting. So I do think part 2 was better than part 1. I think we're Thrash next, and then Derek, and then we'll close up. Thrash.
I thoroughly enjoyed Friday the 13th, part 2. I don't know if I enjoyed it. I think I may have enjoyed the first one slightly more just because of the impact it had on me. I hadn't seen horror movies like that to this time. I think I was 13 when I saw the first one, and it really sort of set the stage. But one thing I loved about the second one is all good horror movies have a few things in common. One of them is they have an opening sequence which is marginally, if at all, related to the rest of the movie. And it's that way of basically getting you to pull your seat out from under you. And what they did was brilliant. Their opening horror shot is the last scene of the first movie. They get the last, spoiler alert, they take the last girl and they got her. So the whole first movie is now resolved. They're now picking up with the second film. So it's not really involved with the second one, but is the sort of punctuation mark to the first. And it really creates, Derek, as you were saying, you try to see these franchises as like one long epic movie. 1 and 2, I'm not going to talk about 3, that's a separate case, but 1 and 2, in my opinion, are one long double feature. And I thoroughly enjoy 2 just for that reason alone.
All right, Derek. Take it away,
Okay.
buddy.
So I forget the actress's name. The woman who plays the final girl in the first film, who gets killed at the beginning of the first one. I know she has like a winery and she's a painter now. I've had a couple signed pieces by her in the past, and it starts with an A, I think. But anyway, it's slipping my mind. But I felt like they did do her character a little bit wrong in the beginning of this film, but it was still shocking and a great sequence. So it caught everybody off guard. Nobody expected that. They saw her. They're like, oh, here's the final girl. She's going to be the main character in this franchise. Boom. Oh, my gosh. So I love that. And also, I agree with the fact that it was the old woman at the end of the first one. It was like, oh, this is awesome. But then you think about it and you're like, wait a minute. I saw some of the stuff this person was doing, and I just don't know. But and so the second one, and I absolutely love Sackhead Jason. You don't get to the hockey mask till the third one. So you have the Sackhead in this one, and it's got like the one eye hole, right? If I remember right. And I love the hockey mask. It is Jason now. It just is now going forward. I want to see the hockey mask, but this is a great looking Jason, a great actor portraying the role as Jason, the body movement and everything. Maybe my favorite. I actually like him a little bit more than Kane Hodder in the role and the way he moves and the way he portrays the character. I felt like this is a perfect Jason besides the hockey mask. But again, the Sackhead, don't have a problem with it. Just a really good movie. I didn't love part 3 like a lot of people did. It's actually one of the weaker ones in the franchise to me. So part 2 holds a special nostalgia for me just because of that. Because I went from part 1, I was like, that was awesome. I went to part 2, I was like, that was a little bit better. And then I went to part 3 and I was like, meh. So part 2 holds this like hierarchy for me, I guess. I love Friday the 13th part 2. And you talked about opening sequences. It's one of the most shocking and most brutal ones in the franchise. Friday the 13th remake from 2013, I believe was the year it came out, is probably my favorite opening sequence. And then, obviously the sleeping bag sequence in Jason X. But, this is a good sequence to open up with. A lot of good kills in this movie. Since we're on the subject of horror, I grew up on Chucky and Leprechaun and Friday the 13th, and So I love these movies, and they have not negatively impacted my life thus far, thank God. So, but yeah, part two is definitely one of my favorite in the entire franchises, and I find that in these types of horror franchises, part twos stand really strong. Chucky, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. The part twos are pretty good movies.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that in the horror genre, the part twos kind of outshine. I think they kind of get a good idea in the part ones, and then the part twos, they really come through on a lot of these. I have to admit, at the Friday 13th, or not Friday 13th part two, but the Nightmare on Elm Street part two was, as far as those films are concerned, that was one of the better. That was one of the better one of those
It was
films.
scary in that movie. He was
Yeah,
scary.
it
It's
was
the only
scary.
one I found him kind of scary in. And then, part three is my favorite, but he's just funny in that one. So
He gets comical.
welcome to prime time,
Yeah, in that, yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna go around the room and just just tell us a little bit about your channel. We opened up with that, but just tell like just a few sentences about what you're doing, like what your next project is and stuff like that. What are you working on? And let's go with Justin. I know probably you don't have a lot. I know you said you don't have a lot on your channel, but what are you working on next? Are you gonna put some more stuff on there? What's going on?
Yeah, usually I just like to collaborate with other YouTubers, yourself, Dave, and Thrash. Sometimes I'm on his chats and
Uh-huh.
I find things interesting we can talk about. I'll definitely contact you guys, see if we can get a topic going. I do
Mhm.
have a StreamYard account, so I was able to look around there a bit. I haven't mastered it yet, so still working on getting that going, but we'll see in the future. So
All
yeah.
right. All right. Well, Thrash, what are you working on?
Well, tonight I actually have a live chat. You
Nobody's gonna
guys
when
all
this.
welcome. Well, I
Yeah.
know, but I like talking about it. As of late, as our good dear friend and guru, Mr. David Sundstrom, can't always do his Thursday nights. I've been filling him in for him whenever possible. So you'll miss this one, but there'll be future Thursdays where I'm sure you'll see this cute face instead of Dave Sundstrom's. But the big things I got working on right now is I just haven't got that new laptop yet. Soon, mezzanine, soon, and I have some retrospects planned.
Mhm.
Not just film reviews, but showcases where I really delve into them, like we see a lot of other film buffs do. I have one I've put together on Wizards, another one on the stuff, and a few others. So you should see some big sci-fi film review retrospects in the not too distant future.
I,
Plus all my little fun stuff.
I love your reviews. I mean, they're really good. You are definitely a connoisseur of movie critic nostalgia. It's good stuff over there, and I love your dad jokes. Your dad jokes are the best of the worst, and I mean that in all positively. Oh, how am I saying that?
Thank you.
It's great. And your thumbnails are just are getting better too. I think you're probably getting people clicking on a lot more. So your channel is just improving, Bob. I mean, seriously, man, from the first time we've watched, I mean, you're just going up and up and up. It's great over there. And Derek, what do you got going on over at your channel?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so first of all, I want to say always, ENC, it's so fun being on your show. I absolutely love the format and the way you do things and the things we talk about. Because in the generation I grew up in, the movies just don't stick the way they used to. You have like, I don't know, these cinematic universes, and everybody just wants to see a movie get tied together with something else and nothing original. And so a lot of these old films we get to talk about, I really enjoy getting to discuss these with you guys. Also, I want to say, Justin, it's been awesome talking and getting to work with you. And I hope I'd love to have you on my channel sometime. Yeah, we could talk about anything. We'll discuss that. And Thrash, your videos are some of my favorite on my subscription feed, and I love watching them. Like you said, Ian, the dad jokes and your reviews are some of my favorite reviews, even of things that I've never heard of. Your sci-fi novels, your sci-fi
Yes.
movies. things like this. Like sometimes I click on them, I listen to it, I'm like, I don't know what this franchise is, but like I want to now. Like Bob, and you've really, you've got a great thing going. You've got an awesome personality and a great channel. The last two movies I had right here on, I just wanted to show. I got Evil Dead 2 and the Rambo, and this is not the sequel. It's the fourth, I think, in the series, but the Rambo movie, a couple of movies that are good sequels of some Gen X movies that I really, really enjoyed. So on my channel, just really going to get back to what we used to do, really getting back into it, started uploading a lot more recently again, the last month or so. It took a little bit of a hiatus. Now we're going to be reviewing things. And during that hiatus, I really just did like new movies in theater. Now we're getting back into new movies in theater, but also a lot of older films, a lot of foreign films. I'm reviewing, I think it's pronounced Inua Shiki, which is a live action film of an anime from Japan that I'm watching and reviewing right now. I did a lot of Criterion old movies recently in my last two reviews. Just kind of getting back to basics, hoping to do reviews of movies that people haven't heard of that maybe I can convince them to watch or stay away from, however I feel. And however, I want to convince everyone to see everything. And even if I don't like it, and that's why I always try to say, in my opinion, but check it out if you like this and this and this.
Right.
As well as like getting back to snacks and knickknacks and things like that. As far as movie projects, that's kind of been put on hold for right now, but just a lot of reviews. I'm in talks with a lot of filmmakers and people involved in the making of films, actors, actresses, directors, producers, directors, things like that. Just I'm going to have interviewing on the channel hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Just like I said, just kind of what I was doing about 3-4 months ago.
When we talk about our channels, they kind of take on a life of their own, and it's slightly different than what we envision at first. So, when you're saying, well, the snacks and knickknacks have kind of gone by the wayside, it's mostly been film review. That happens to every channel. Like it's like, so if like for me, I thought I would do a lot more on more serious topics too. Like back when you saw a few of my early episodes, I did stuff on like child development of the 80s. And and I'm still going to do a little bit more of that, but it's almost like you get it out there and you throw it and it grows by itself a little bit, and so
you get your community and you attach to that. Yeah.
Right. And you get, and it doesn't become radically different than you imagine, but it certainly does take on a life of its own that's slightly different than you thought it was going to be originally. So yeah, don't be too, I think everybody does that. I think everybody kind of goes through that. Yeah. So you might've thought, hey, I'm going to do a show about, this whole project that I'm doing right now was a plan B. My first project on YouTube was going to be my game channel. And that's the retro serial was just going to be a podcast that I was just going to offer on YouTube and maybe do a couple of things on YouTube as a kind of a behind the scenes. But my YouTube channel was going to be my gaming channel. Now that channel is completely retired, and this has been my main YouTube channel. So things, it's all good. Things change. Well, hey everybody. I just want to thank you all for watching, subscribe to every single one of these people's channels. You will find their channel listed in the description below. If you're listening to this on podcast form, please give me a rating and a review and share it on your favorite social media. And do always know that you're always invited to go over to YouTube and kind of check it out. I did, there's a little bit more content on YouTube. I just did a thing on 5 things you didn't know about Cheers. So that's kind of a thing that doesn't quite go over to the podcasting platform. So if you want to see some more stuff from Retro Serial, go over there. But if you just listen to this as far as a podcast is concerned, I am elated. However you listen to this, that I love it. Just listen to it. Just like it, review it, share it, all that stuff. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the like button. Please share it on your favorite social media. If you want to go that extra step and donate some of your hard-earned cash to this YouTube mogul empire, please do so by following the links below to the Patreon page or the Venmo, and you can donate. And I want to thank everybody for listening, watching. I want to thank my guests today. You've been amazing. We're going to do this again. I already have another idea. I'll talk to you off the air about it. So, all right, we will talk to you guys real soon, and we'll see you on a Monday night live stream.